Thank you for joining us today for this Reframing Retirement event and today's topic, Brain Wise, Body Foolish, presented by Dr. Tad of Organic Living Chiropractic. We want to thank the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging and Ant Credit Union for collaborating on this series. Before we begin, we ask that you please keep your microphones muted. You can use the chat area to let us know if you have a question. You can also rename your profile so we can accurately call out the correct person during questions and for our door prizes. You can do this by hovering over the participant bottom at the bottom to open the participant panel, and then hover over the profile you're in, represented by the word me next to it, and then hover over the name, click the three dots, and select rename. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Pamela Hogard from the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging. Pamela, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Jared. So I don't know if there are people who have been here before, but for the sake of your notes, there will be a little bit of repeating, but hopefully not too much. We are in our 9th series, you guys, with Ant Credit Union, and we are very excited about our new Reframing Retirement series. Laura Straub, Community Educator Lead for Ant Credit Union, joins me today, and she will provide a few words later in the program about Ant, our partnership, and a surprise for those who are attending today. Our presentation today, Brain Wise and Body Foolish, we call him Dr. Tad. I'm going to try and say his last name. Dr. Tad Schexnailder. Close, but no cigar, right? Anyway, he prefers to be called Dr. Tad at any rate. So most of you know I'm Pamela, and I represent the Area Agency on Aging, and we are a resource agency that's been around for a while. We specialize in older adult information, assistance, public education, like what you're viewing today. And we publish the Yellow Book, which is the book that has been around for 25, 30 years of resource guide in this community. It's the oldest one in the community. And we've taken on also another book called the Veterans Benefit and Medicaid Manual. So that is very helpful, particularly since this is such a veteran community. It's very helpful for them. Last but not least, of course, we specialize in SHIP, and that stands for the State Health Insurance Program. And that is, we have counselors on board at the Area Agency on Aging who specialize in Medicare insurance counseling. And we're certified through the State Health Insurance Program, and we offer unbiased information on Medicare and health insurance, no brokers, just good old-fashioned information. So let me just say a little bit about the fact that, as most of you know, we've remodeled our retirement series, which we are hoping is going to be a little bit more accurate of the longevity of life, commonly known as what retirement is included in. Retirement has mostly been focused on work rather than the individual doing the work. This Reframing Retirement series is changing the focus from doing to being. Many older adults are working past age 65, and a growing number of older adults are continuing to work well into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. So the trend is expected to continue. And actually, according to Susan Orman, a noted financial expert, she states that the new retirement age is actually 70. So other than the fact that retirement can be considered an outdated term, and it's a script that people have in their minds, we want to reconsider what's next. It dates back actually to the 1930s, where the life expectancy at that time was age 65. But life expectancy now is, just under 80. So what we are experiencing is longevity, and how do we want to live that part of our life, the next 20 to 30 years that a lot of us will have. So the new mindset says, what's next? Instead of a feeling of decline and a disappearance of life purpose and personal identity, which oftentimes happens. So the two modules prior to this one, if you tune into those, Retire by Design and Meaning and Purpose, introduce to you the various topics that you really might want to reflect on and give serious thought to before you retire or make a change in your life. Well, today's topic delves deeper into that whole aspect, and we hope you enjoy this today. So before we introduce Dr. Tad, I'm going to turn it over to Laura, And Laura, I'm going to let you talk about End Credit Union, our partnership, and this surprise that you have for everyone.
Yes, very excited. Thanks for having us. So, End Credit Union, we were founded in 1957. We're Colorado's largest credit union and has been consistently ranked as Colorado's best credit unions by Forbes. End is a not-for-profit financial and community charter credit union that's committed to improving the financial quality of life with better rates, lower fees, and unparalleled products and services to our members. With nearly 10 billion in assets, Ent serves more than 550,000 members at 55 convenient service centers across the Front Range. Ent is an equal housing opportunity and equal opportunity lender insured by the NCUA. Visit ent.com for more information or for more events and webinars. Now, the fun part, though, we do have a $50 e-gift card of your choice for one winner who's present at the end of today's presentation. So definitely stick around until the end so you can be entered in for this $50 e-gift card. Again, we'll do it right before Q&A. So another reason to stick around and hear all that Dr. Tad has to say. So with that, I'll pass it back over.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. So Dr. Tad is going to be addressing some of the common misconceptions about aging and what we can do about it. He will share with you some latest research on how to make simple changes to your body and lifestyle that can have a profound impact on your health, your happiness, and quality of life. You will note that there was a manual in the there was a manual called Foundations of Well-Being on the website that outlines 6 basic principles that can enrich your life. So please, if you haven't downloaded that, take a look at that. It's chock full of good information. There will be a PowerPoint presentation and a Silhouettes note page that will follow in an email after this presentation. So you will get a copy of Tad's presentation today. Dr. Tad is a chiropractor doctor with a Master E-level certification in network spinal TM from the Epi-Energetics Institute. Along with a doctoral degree, he also holds 2 bachelor degrees, one in anatomy and another in health and wellness. He has more than a decade of experience as a chiropractor, massage therapist, exercise specialist, yoga instructor, and rehabilitation coach. Whew, Dr. Tad, that's a lot. He brings an integrative and thoughtful approach to healthcare and living the best life possible. So please give a warm welcome for Dr. Tad. It's all yours.
All right. Thanks, everybody, so much for tuning in. I am going to share my screen here. And let's see if I can get this going right there. Okay, can everybody see the presentation? All right. So today's topic is mind wise, body foolish. And I have to give credit to Pamela over here because she's the one that really inspired the name. And one of the reasons that we named it this is pretty much every single person that comes into my office, I say the exact same thing on their first visit in their exam, which is, wow, you are such an amazing mind, but you're dragging a body around. And that's really how it ends up for most of us, is we have developed our minds so well. We've developed our brains so well, but we are a little bit foolish whenever it comes to the body. So let's get into it. Let's see. There we go. So I am going to disrupt you a little bit. Some of the things that I have to say are very disturbing. They're true. However, when we hear a truth that can oppose our current beliefs, we actually experience a very specific neurological state called cognitive dissonance, and it is uncomfortable. Now, I'm going to bring you to this uncomfortable state because we as a society, we need to be disrupted. We need to make some changes, and change never happens because we're comfortable. It always happens through discomfort. So I'm bringing you into discomfort actually because I love you, because I care for you, and I know that your health and the health of future generations is just too important to allow things to continue with the way that they are. So in the downloads, I believe you're going to get a silhouette sheet. And this silhouette sheet looks very similar to this. It has a few more of them. And this is the most important thing that you can do. And until you have that, if you can kind of just draw out a little body, when we feel uncomfortable, when we feel something that we don't like, most of us will go into our minds and we'll give all the different reasons why we don't like it. But in reality, it's a sensation that we don't like. It's the sensations that we run from. We do the things that we do in life because of the way that they make us feel. And we avoid things in our life, even healthy things, because we're afraid of how they're going to make us feel. So one of the best things that we can do, and I'm going to ask you to do this during this presentation, is I want you to start tracking. Where do you feel discomfort? Whenever you hear something that's just like, I don't know about that, or you hear it and you're just like, oh, that really gets me. I want you to start marking down, where do you actually feel that? And I want you to do that on the opposite end also, is if you hear something that just really lights you up and inspires you, I want you to stop for a second and I want you to pay attention, where do you actually feel that? And I want you to mark that down as well. While we're going through this and we're feeling, be sure to connect with how you're breathing. Make sure that during this entire presentation, you're using this as a time to breathe as deeply as you possibly can. The simplest thing that we can possibly do to change our health is actually just breathing. Pay attention to these different parts of the presentation that may trigger you or may light you up. It's only with awareness that we can create any sort of change. Remember, comfort is actually the enemy of growth. Comfort is the reward that we get after the growth. But if we're trying to make comfort the goal, we'll actually interfere with the growth process. So, just like everyone said, my name is Dr. Tad, and it's pronounced Schexnailder, but I don't expect anybody to remember that. So just Dr. Tad will do it. And I specialize in health and wellness. I specialize in a technique called network spinal, which is a chiropractic technique. And I got into it because the research shows it actually produces the largest spontaneous lifestyle changes. And if you're into health and wellness, we have to acknowledge that every single person is unique. There's no one diet that's going to work for everybody. There's no one exercise plan that's going to work for everybody. But we do need to incorporate healthy things into our lives. And so changing our lifestyle is a very much of a personal thing. And in order to do that, we have to help you to get to know yourself, because you're the only person that has all the information about how to run your life and your body as a unique individual. Now, the deeper I went into network spinal and helping people to make these lifestyle changes, the more I started to recognize that the people that were having the most trouble in my practice making these changes, they were usually struggling with some sort of addiction. So I got into studying addiction and addictionology. And what I found out is that we all struggle in this area. This is something that affects us as a whole, as a society. And I got very passionate about helping to change some of the stigma around addiction and to recognize that most of us are actually addicted to our crappy lifestyles that are making us feel bad, that are making us feel sick. So the goal today in this presentation is to empower you to experience health and a joyful life, and to recognize that that's actually a lot easier than most of us believe. So this is one of my favorite sayings, is that a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit in. Now, I'm doing this today actually for a very selfish reason. I want the best society for my daughters to grow up in. I want the best society for the future. And that's only going to happen whenever the older generation is able to truly embrace health, to embrace living, and to embrace thriving. Because if any segment of the population is not doing well, the entire population is going to suffer from that. So one of the things I want to start off with is that health, just like a garden, needs to be cultivated. It's something that we actually have to pay attention to. We have to really focus on growing this thing that we call health and wellness. So I'm going to ask you, how are you cultivating health? How are you cultivating wellness? Are you cultivating health and wellness like a hunter-gatherer? Are you just kind of going out and hoping that health is somewhere out there? And if you can find it, if you can hunt it, if you can grab it with the right lotion, the right potion, the right pill for every ill, then just kind of living day to day? Or are you cultivating health like an agrarian, like a gardener, diligently working with the seasons of your life, diligently working with the circumstances that you're given, riding the waves of famine and harvest? Or are you manufacturing health and wellness like an industrialist? Are you seeking out resources and collaborating with others around you in order to create an abundance of health, an abundance of wellness, so much so that it's actually overflowing and you can distribute it to those around you? Constantly focusing on the benefit and growth more than just for yourself. So let's look at healthcare, and I do put air quotes around healthcare, our current healthcare system. And America looks pretty good on the very, very surface. We have the most extensive healthcare system in the entire world. We have more doctors than any other country. We have the best hospitals. We lead the world in technology and in research. And the US spends more than any other country in the world. And this is a very old statistic, so it's definitely more than this, but 3.5 trillion per year on healthcare. Now, we have the most extensive and expensive healthcare system in the history of the world. What are we getting for that? Well, the statistics are not really that good. We have the lowest life expectancy at birth. We have the highest death rates for avoidable and treatable conditions. We have the highest maternal and infant mortality, and we have the highest rate of people with multiple chronic conditions. And our obesity rate is nearly twice what it is in other developed countries. And all of this is according to the Commonwealth Fund. 90% of seniors in this country have at least one chronic medical condition, and 77% have two or more. Now, chronic diseases are definitely the most costly diseases to treat. They are defined as a rarely curable condition. But the thing is, they're also the most preventable. According to the CDC, the leading cause of death and disease in America today is our lifestyle. The second leading cause of death and disease, according to the Institute of Medicine's U.S. Committee on Quality of Healthcare in America, is actually the medical interventions trying to prevent and trying to treat these preventable issues. It's not going well. And what we're doing currently is actually making things worse. So I love this quote from Mark Twain. It says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's that what you know for sure that just ain't so." So what do we think we know about health, about wellness? That just ain't so. What is it that's causing us as a society to make such horrible lifestyle choices that we're the ones wiping ourselves out? So the first thing is just the definition of health, just what it is. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It is not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. This is according to Dorland's Medical Dictionary. As a matter of fact, there is not a single medical dictionary in the entire world that defines health as a lack of symptoms. Yet, when we go to the doctor, isn't that mostly what we talk about? Isn't everything that we're used to measuring at the doctor's office based on symptoms? And if you have this certain number and it gets to be too high, well, that's one disease. And if it gets to be too low, well, that's another disease. Do you know of a single measure of well-being that the higher the number, the better you are? And there's no such thing as too high? Is anybody measuring this in your life? Are you measuring health in this way, where it is this thing that if we get more of it, it only means good news? So how do you know in your life, if you're not looking at symptoms, how do you know if you're getting healthier rather than just having less symptoms? Because believe it or not, there is one population in this country that has zero symptoms. That population is the inhabitants of the graveyards. No symptoms, but I tell you what, they don't have good health either. So, did you know, on average, it takes about 7 to 10 years to replace every single cell of your body? Now, isn't that wild? Like, don't we have this myth that as we get older, our body's supposed to deteriorate? Well, the truth is the body is actually always growing. It's always healing. It's always adapting until it doesn't. And that's when we enter the population that has zero symptoms. We need a growth mindset. Stress, believe it or not, is the inspiration for growth, but only if we choose to embrace it. If we don't choose growth, then by default, we're choosing deterioration, because staying the same is not an option in this lifetime. We live in an ever-changing universe. We either adapt or we deteriorate. So did you know that the body can heal from broken bones more quickly in old age than when we're younger? Now, this was published in the journal Bone in 2019. It was conducted by a team of researchers from Duke Medical University. And this finding was shown whenever the researchers chemically lowered one of the molecules that's associated with inflammation. And then all of a sudden, the older bones started healing faster than the younger bones. Now, isn't that the myth? Is that the older we get, the slower we heal? Well, the truth is that the older the body, the wiser the body. The more experience as a body has had, the more it's learned how to grow from stress, and the more quickly it can bounce back as long as we're living the correct lifestyle. Another research paper stated, and I quote, "Age-related changes affect many of the biological processes involved in fracture healing. However, the contributions of such changes do not fully explain the poorer healing outcomes and increased morbidity reported in elderly patients. Yes, aging changes us, but those changes actually don't tell us why, in this country, older people have slower healing rates. Health in our later years is supposed to look different than in our young and dumb years. The aging process is a required increase in efficient living. You're not supposed to do the dumb things that you did whenever you were younger. And so the body will scream at us if we try to continue to do that. If we go against this trend of life, which is to get better and to get stronger as time goes on, to become wiser and to waste less energy, if we go against this, then guess what? Things are supposed to hurt. Pain is a very important factor in living. If we have no pain, we don't know when we're doing dumb things. Pain is a signal from our bodies that change is necessary. Change in how we're going through life. Because if we keep going, we're going to wear down the body faster than its ability to regenerate itself. If we ignore this signal, this pain signal, or we try to turn it off so that we don't have to hear it, that's very much like turning our check engine light off in our car before we get it fixed. Yeah, it'll keep going for a little while, but it's not going to go well. More damage occurs. And since inflammation is actually the chemical message from the body to the brain that healing needs to occur, if we keep pushing beyond the level that we're supposed to, inflammation starts to become our normal, and it stays too high for too long. Now, did you know that 1 out of 10 people will die within 1 year of retirement? And 2 out of 10 will get diagnosed with a debilitating illness or disease. Now, one would think that the older you are, the myth is that the later you retire, the more likely this is to happen. But actually, the exact opposite is true. The earlier we reach retirement, the higher this risk goes. The myth is that if I have less stress in my life, I will be healthier. The truth is that passion and purpose are actually necessary for a healthy body. And believe it or not, so is stress. We have 2 options to respond to stress. We can either grow from stress, or we can defend and try to stay the same from it. Defense is trying to stay the same. And we cannot grow and stay the same simultaneously. We have to choose. And what we choose, or repetition, is actually what trains the body. So Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem from the same consciousness that created it. We must learn to see the world anew. So what world do we need to see anew so that we can actually solve these health problems in our society? Because it's not lack of treatment that's causing our biggest problems. It's something else. We need to see health anew. We need to see ourselves anew. We need to see our bodies anew. We need to see life anew. If we have any hope of not passing these same problems on to future generations. And guess what? Retirement is an ideal time to start seeing things anew. It's a new season. It's a new way of living. Since we're already making all these changes, we might as well throw in some of the changes for health. Okay, the best time to make a change is actually yesterday. The second best would be right now. So how do we need to see the body anew? Now, this is from Harvard Medical School. The body has a superior wisdom that is in favor of life rather than death. The body actually wants you to live. The body wants to grow and become healthier and to become stronger. The body wants to support you in enjoying life through your body. This is the power that we depend on for life. It actually comes from the body. All doctors are responsible for letting their patients know of this great force working within them. But how many times do we go to the doctor and we're actually supported, or we learn how to trust our bodies, how to listen to our bodies? If they have this superior wisdom, it's not the body that's the problem. Most of the time, it's that we don't listen to it. A kind of super intelligence exists in each of us, infinitely smarter and possessive of a technical know-how far beyond present understanding. Our current medical model doesn't truly understand how the body functions. We just don't. And because we don't truly understand it, most of the time when we tell it what it should or shouldn't be doing, that actually causes more problems down the road. Our body is precious life. It is not a machine that's supposed to be there purely for productivity. Our bodies are living organisms made up of trillions of individual living entities. These cells are all working together, and they're working together for our benefit. Each living cell has a unique personality, and it has gifts to offer. I see most people treat their pets better than their bodies, and they treat their bodies worse than they treat their cars. And so it's no wonder how we have this amazing, incredible system that's designed to regrow and to become smarter and stronger and more efficient as we age. And yet it's deteriorating long before we get the most out of life. What if we treated our bodies with the same tender, nurturing fascination that we treated our children, or even better, that we treated our grandchildren? This preciousness that we feel for them is the same preciousness that we need to cultivate, that we need to learn as a skill and practice for ourselves and for our bodies. Neither genes nor in our environment cause disease. I'm going to say that again. Neither genes nor our environment cause disease. It is simply that our organism becomes unsuited for adaptive action in one or several environments. That is a wildly different way to start approaching our body. Now, this is not my opinion. This is not woo-woo Dr. Tad's just take on life. This is actually from the American Journal of Human Genetics. So let me ask you this. What does the body need in order to heal? What does the body need in order to grow throughout our entire lifetimes? There's actually two things that it needs, and everything else is just an iteration of one or both of these two things, which is energy, fuel. We have to have gas in our gas tank if we want our car to go anywhere. And then we need information. We need the actual instructions on how to use our fuel correctly. Now, whenever we think of the instructions for the body, a lot of people will talk about their genetics. And yes, genetics are very, very important instructions. But guess what? Genetics can change. Genetics do change. Genetics change by the information that we are feeding our body by our thoughts, by our feelings, by our behaviors, by our habits, by our lifestyles, by who and what we're around, and what environments we bring ourselves into. All of those things actually change the instructions inside every single one of our cells. So how do we program the body to use its fuel? There's two basic ways that we program our body, that we change our genetics. We can either program our body to move away from what we don't want, or we can program our body to move towards what we do want. We will never get to where we want to be by avoiding what we don't want. But guess what? If we start moving towards what we do want, even though sometimes we have to walk right through what we don't want, ultimately we will end up at a place we want to be, which is the opposite of where we don't want to be. Moving away and moving towards are two complete incompatible ways of programming our body. If we are programming our body away, then we're not programming our body toward, and vice versa. Away is about safety. It's about stability. It's about when the tigers were chasing after our ancestors. And at that moment, every resource in the body had to be used to try to stay the same, because the changes that those tigers were trying to make were not good changes. And so every resource in our ancestors' body had to say, do I need to fight the tiger to stay the same? Do I need to run from the tiger to stay the same? Do I need to hide from the tiger to stay the same? Or do I need to please the tiger and try to fit in with the tiger so that it won't try to make me change? But staying the same is completely opposite from growth, from healing. And in order to stay the same, whenever we are programming our body to move away from what we don't want, we're actually turning the volume down, and we're taking resources away from our immune system. We're turning down and taking resources away from our digestive system. All of our hormones and our growth gets muted and turned down in order for those same resources to go to try to make the same. Now, when we move towards something, we do the exact opposite. When we move towards what we want, when we move into pleasure, when we move into joy, when we move into peace, into love, we actually take resources away from fight or flight in our body, and we start allocating them towards healing, towards growth, towards learning, towards adapting, towards thriving, and towards improving. Now, this right here is why symptom management in our current system and early detection of disease are not healthcare. They have about as much to do with health as life insurance has to do with life. It's the exact opposite. They are not about health at all. They're about avoiding discomfort. They're about avoiding disease, and it's about avoiding death. Now, it's true. If you're dead, you can't really work on thriving or growing. So there is absolutely a need for very good symptom management and early disease detection, but they are not healthcare, and we have to actually employ both. So, what is the biggest lifestyle factor? Because remember, even according to the CDC, lifestyle is our #1 killer. What is the biggest lifestyle factor that decreases healing and growing? Now, lots of people would say, oh, it's lack of diet, or a good healthy diet, or lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyle. Yes, all of these are factors, but there's one thing that actually spurs all of those factors, and it's fear. Now, it may sound a little cliche. According to Gandhi, the enemy is fear. We think it's hate, but it's actually fear. Now, fear is very sneaky. Our body can be in a physiological, in a functional fear state, but we don't have to feel afraid. Isn't that a little bit wacky how our body can be in fear and we can have no idea about it if we're just looking at, do I feel afraid? Well, we know that fear has at least 3 unique flavors in our brain, 3 unique pathways neurologically that we utilize or process fear. And each one of these pathways has a very unique reaction inside the body. It causes the body to do specific things, and there's a unique antidote. If we can recognize which fear are we in, we can pull our body into the exact opposite or growth response. So look at this picture, and I want you to pay attention. What does your body do? It may not be a major reaction. It's probably pretty subtle. But if you look at this picture, I guarantee you, paying enough attention, you're going to notice a fear response. Even though there's no actual fear or there's no actual danger. Okay, this right here would trigger what's called the fear of pain, which is one of those three unique neurological pathways. There's the fear of pain, there's the fear of defeat or aggression from members of our society, and then there's the fear of death. Now, in animals, these fears are very logical. They make a lot of sense biologically. They make a lot of sense if you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint about how they can help the species move forward by helping individuals survive longer. But humans, because we have this really big prefrontal cortex that allows us to do this thing called imagine. And when we imagine, it gives us the ability to go in a very different direction than our natural instinctual urges. We get very creative with these different fears. For us, the fear of pain is not just physical pain, it's also emotional pain. It's mental pain, it's spiritual pain, and our body will react in a fear response to as if there was a physical threat, even whenever we're imagining a situation that we really don't want to happen. The next one is the fear of defeat. Now, in the animal kingdom, what we want to happen is that the individuals with the best genes want to pass those genes on to the next generation so that every generation of a species will get stronger and wiser because it's being taught genetically by the strongest and the wisest of their ancestors. Okay, so what happens in a population of animals is that you'll have the alpha, and the alpha will fight all of the other members of that society, that population, in order to get mating rights. And the more the alpha wins, the more certain portions of the brain grow. And those portions of the brain that grow are related to finding more resources in order to become stronger and to be able to pass on their genetics. So that is, the hormone system starts to shift more towards growth and more towards being able to repopulate. Now, all members that are not alpha, the ones that get defeated on a regular basis, every defeat starts to shrink that portion of the brain, which is part of the amygdala. And as that portion of the brain starts to shrink, the brain starts to have less of a capacity to find more resources, because if you're not going to be passing on your genetics, you don't need to be taking more resources from the rest of the population. That portion, that individual that continues to get defeated, their hormones start to shift away from growth and reproductive and start to go more towards actually shrinking, so that they are around less, taking up less resources, so that there's more resources for the stronger, fitter, healthier members of those societies. And the pleasure centers of their brain start to atrophy. And they get into a depressive and apathetic kind of a what's the point type of functionality inside their body. Now, humans, although we do not have to battle for our survival anymore, we definitely don't have to battle for mating rights. We still have these same neurological fear pathways in our brain, but we're not battling each other anymore. What are we battling? We're battling life. In humans, the fear of defeat comes about as the coulds, the shoulds, the shouldn'ts, and the could'ves. I should be, they should be, I shouldn't have, they could have, but they didn't. Oh, they couldn't have done that. All of these are really us fighting life. And if we fight life, guess who's going to win? Not us. And we're going to experience these neurological pathways being stimulated again and again, which is literally going to shrink the pleasure centers of our brain and grow the fear portions of our brain, which then decrease our ability to produce the hormones that cause us to grow and to thrive. And the last one is the fear of death. Now, this one makes a lot of sense in the animal kingdom, but if most of us would turn off the news and actually just be present throughout the entire day, what we would find out is it is extremely rare that we actually have to worry about our survival. I've got homeless people that are running around my neighborhood. They are living far better than the majority of our ancestors did throughout most of humanity. They have an easier, more cushy life than most of our ancestors. So this drive to survive that we have is still functioning within us. However, we're not really using it to survive anymore. So we humans, we get super creative. We're no longer really battling the fear of death. We're battling the fear of losing our identity, which is a kind of death. We're battling the fear of having our beliefs proven wrong, which is kind of a death. We're battling our normals and our routines from changing, which is a kind of death, according to certain parts of our brain. And again, the more we struggle to try to stay the same, the more we resist growth and healing, because those are all about change. So Peter Levine, the developer of somatic experiencing, said to heal is to touch with love that which we previously touched with fear.
What a bunch of hippy-dippy baloney.
And it sounds really cliche, but it's actually true. If we are not practicing love, then by default, we're actually growing in fear. Now, there is no chemical inside the body. There's no chemical that the body produces that actually makes us feel bad. There's no depression chemical. There's no anxiety chemical. Okay, there is chemicals that make us feel good. Oxytocin makes us feel love and connection and want to be around others. Serotonin makes us feel at ease and relaxed. Dopamine helps us to feel like we've done a good job and we want to go out and get more. Norepinephrine makes us feel excited, like we're ready to go on an adventure. All of these chemicals that the body makes help us to feel good. But when we are not cultivating those chemicals, when we're not growing our brain's ability to create and to use that chemistry more efficiently, if we're not feeling really good, then in the absence of those chemicals or the absence of the ability to use those chemicals, by default, we feel bad. This is why we cannot fight negative feelings, but we can turn on positive ones. So there's a study on oxytocin, and I quote, non-noxious. What does non-noxious means? It means it just doesn't feel bad. Non-noxious sensory stimulation to our bodies will result in decreased stress levels and decreased reactivity to stress. In other words, decreased obsession with trying to move away from what we don't want. But this also stimulates a process related to the restoration and growth of our bodies. We have to love ourselves. In retirement, this is actually your full-time job. Now that survival is no longer something that you have to focus on, beware the addiction to stress and struggle. Whenever our brain has spent and been trained the majority of our lives for hard work and struggling to make it by, this becomes our norm. And if we don't watch ourselves, if we are not very aware of ourselves, we will actually fight unconsciously to keep this our norm, which then decreases our ability to grow and heal. So now that survival is no longer the main focus of our lives, we actually have to train full time to get back into love, to get back into peace, to get back into ease. And we have to do this vigilantly. The myth is that when I start to feel good, well, circumstances will align. The truth is that practicing feeling good actually makes us healthier. And it trains the certain portion of our brain called our amygdala to become more sensitive to finding more opportunities for health and happiness. But this is something that we have to train into our system, because fear and survival throughout the generations and mostly throughout our lives have trained in the exact opposite. Abraham Maslow, who is the father of the hierarchy of needs, stated, one can choose to go back towards safety or forward towards growth. Growth must be chosen again and again, and fear must be overcome again and again. We have to embrace vigilance. But the vigilance that we need to embrace is to vigilantly seek out and press into and savor every moment of our lives in love and in pleasure, the pleasure of being alive. Otherwise, the vigilance that we have trained into our body through fear is going to take over unconsciously. So here's some practical takeaways. How do we manufacture thriving? Well, first, do the simple things. In the handout, in the ebook that I sent out, are the basics for what it needs to maintain a healthy body. Now, I have never had anyone come in my office that had the basics covered. Everybody wants to jump to these exotic diagnoses and these exotic treatments, but yet most of us don't have the basics down. We're not giving our body the fundamental things that they need in order to do what they do, which is to support us to live and to grow and to be healthy and to thrive. So do the simple things first. And once we have the simple things mastered, whatever's left, then we can start to look more towards the exotic. Number 2, lifestyle. If our lifestyle is our biggest problem, well, guess what? Our lifestyle is therefore our biggest solution. Changing our lifestyle, and retirement is the perfect opportunity to do that. Changing our lifestyle into loving living, into enjoying our body is completely necessary. Whoops. There we go. Practicing a healthy lifestyle that is very different than the one that we had whenever we were working for a living is 100% necessary in order to change the biggest problem, the biggest killer in our society. Healthcare is different than medical care. We absolutely need both. Healthcare will keep you growing and thriving, whereas medical care will keep you from dying. Both are very important. And one day as a society, we will be able to embrace both. We will be that smart. But right now, We're not a smart society, but you can start that process. You can embrace the differences, the uniqueness of healthcare, which helps you to grow and to thrive, and medical care simultaneously. Don't wait until society gets it. You be the one that plants the seed, even though you may not be the one that sits in the shade of that tree. Life is a team sport. We cannot do this alone. We need others. We need community. Not only our social life, our social community, but we need a team of true healthcare experts that are on our team supporting us to make the best lifestyle choices possible. We need massage therapists. We need exercise professionals. We need personal trainers. We need acupuncturists. We need nutritionists. We need herbalists. We need meditation teachers. We need yoga instructors. We need chiropractors. We need naturopaths. We need those professionals in our lives that are going to do things other than just find and treat our symptoms and diseases. And lastly, we have to be vigilant about practicing self-love. If we cannot love ourselves, if we cannot love our bodies, if we cannot love our minds, we cannot love the minds and the bodies of those around us. And lastly, why does ageism exist? I've heard somebody saying that ageism is taught, and this is very true. It is absolutely taught. However, there's a lot more to it than that. Why is it taught? How do we address the fear of aging? And that's why we have it. If we are afraid that our bodies are not going to work for us, if we are afraid of the deterioration process, okay, if we are afraid because we think aging and deterioration go together, then when we see a body that reminds us of that fear, when we see an older body that's not able to do everything that we think it should do, well, guess what? We're going to start to treat the person in that body very differently. If we fear our bodies because they don't function how we think they should, well, then our fear is realized as we get older. And the more older people are around us, the more fear it reminds us of. And guess what? We want to try to push them away instead of addressing what's really going on, which is we're in a fear response. If we cannot love our own bodies throughout our entire lives, then when anything around us reminds us of fear, that's where our bodies are going to go. So how do we turn this fear into love? We must consciously, we must compassionately, we must choose to make the most and enjoy every moment of our short lives to the fullest. Only when we enjoy ourselves and passionately learn how to do that differently in different seasons of our lives, only then will the fullness of our life outweigh the sadness of the loss of life, which is a part of life. And then, and only then, will our lives stand as an inspiration for future generations long after we are gone. This is a major problem in our society. What is the stereotype for the younger generation? What? They have a poor work ethic. What are they? They're just sitting around doing whatever they please. And being productive. Well, why? Why should they work hard? Why should they work hard? If whenever they see a retired person around them, what they see is a person stuck in fear, stuck in misery, trying to cling to a life that they had rather than loving where they are in life. If the younger generation does not see the joy of a successful life, well lived, why would they work hard? That's a bad investment to spend the majority of your life working hard so that in the last few years you get to not work and slowly deteriorate. It's just a bad investment. And we have to change how we are seeing this. We have to change that by the older generation showing the younger generation by example how amazing it is to age, and ultimately how amazing it is to enjoy a full life and die with love, with joy, surrounded by an incredible community that can celebrate every single life lived. Only then will we be able to turn off this cause of ageism. Thank you very much for everyone that's joined. Again, my name is Dr. Tad Schexnailder. If anybody has any questions, if anybody would like to reach out with anything in particular that's not answered today, you can reach me at organiclivingchiropractic@gmail.com through our email. There is a ton of very valuable information on our website, organiclivingchiropractic.com, and our Facebook page and YouTube page are constantly being updated with new and very practical information. Such things as like, what is the actual practice that we need to do? What are the practical things that we need to do to build a skill of loving and enjoying our body? So all of that information is out there for free. Please do not hesitate to reach out. And I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. There we go. All right. So I believe we
Dr.
have.
Jack, we're going to turn it over to Laura for their exciting door prize, and then we'll get back to any questions or comments or stories that people want to share with us. Okay?
Yes. All right. So let me share my screen. We have our fun wheel. So hopefully you see your name up there. I'm going to click that shuffle button and let's click to see who's our winner. Oh, Michelle.
Yay!
Here, how to reach out to me for your $50 gift card. So very exciting. Yay.
Cool. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Michelle, have you been to all the other presentations that we've had, or is this your first one?
This is the first one I've been to. I tried to make the other ones and ran into meeting conflicts. So glad I was here.
Well, I'm sure glad that this was a momentous occasion for you. That's great. That's great. Appreciate that. I wanted to just share that, Dr. Tad has given us a lot of information today, and there were a couple times you faded in and out. I don't know if that was the internet connection or what happened with that, but most of the presentation was solid, right, Bree? Do you agree? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Well, folks, this is an opportunity to do some exploring and be curious if you've got some questions or anything you'd like to share with your stories, personal experiences. It's really helpful to have the professional with us to fire the questions if you would like to do so. And if not, Dr. Tad did give his information as to how he can be reached if you would like to do it that way as well. So Dr. Tad, thank you so much for your time today. You've been awesome. It's been
Thanks
awesome.
so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Great, thank you. So we hope to see you all at our next webinar, Making Retirement a Reality, presented by the Ent Credit Union team. And that will be our second to the last session. And then we'll have one more after that talks about the basics of Medicare. That takes us, for those of you who are in Medicare, to go into open enrollment. So I hope that you've enjoyed tonight's session. There will be a follow-up email that will have his PowerPoint and his silhouettes pictures, or his notes page that will be coming. And if you haven't downloaded his ebook, I highly recommend that you go ahead and do that at some point. And then if you missed today, I mean, if you know people that missed it, it will be on YouTube probably tomorrow, right, Jared? When will this be?